Welcome to the live performance, 13 Seconds in Kent State, Episode 1, from the Outcasts Creative. Please do subscribe to our channel for future episodes and on other online performances and video blogs. During the live performance, 2 cast members will act as cover for any members of the company who experience technical difficulties. Should the performance be halted for any reason, we will attempt to resume it as soon as possible. The following story is based on events that took place between 1970 and 1975 in the state of Ohio. It is based on eyewitness accounts, interviews, transcripts, and written testimony. Several characters and events have been combined to simplify the narrative and for dramatic purposes.
Kent State is a name forever synonymous with one of the most divisive events in the history of my country. It's one the university in question took a long time to come to terms with. For some, it was the beginning of the end of our nation's involvement in the Vietnam War. For others, it was a flashpoint of a growing social divide that represented a contrast in attitudes between the older and the younger generations, between those who were still prepared to trust our government and those of us who wanted it to be held more accountable for its actions. Of course, we all know now how the war played out, and if you look at Kent State shootings, you can read something of what lies at the heart of our story. The events of May 4th were photographed, talked about, written about in almost every newspaper and magazine in the Western world. But what you probably haven't heard so much about is what occurred 5 years later, in the summer of 1975, when a New York lawyer named Joseph Kelner took on our case for the breach of something that each of us holds very dear, our civil rights. That court case is a mere footnote in most history books. But for a brief moment in time, Joseph Kelner and his team gave people like my mother, Elaine Hosteen, hope. Not long after the shootings, she got in contact with him. That's when the shootings were still doing the rounds in the news. She asked Joe to meet him at our favorite spaghetti house, Rails in Harlem. My mother did love her Italian food.
Can I say how sorry I am for your loss, Mrs. Holstein?
Oh, yeah. The principal of Jeff's high school said those words to me, Mr. Kelner. Yeah, but he wouldn't even lower the flag, half-mast, in Jeff's memory after he was killed. Yeah, apparently the faculty said it would be too divisive for the students.
Yeah, well, sadly, we live in divided times, Mrs. Holstein. Can I ask you, where's Jeff's father in all this?
Oh, we divorced last summer and I remarried. Yeah, it was hard on Jeff with his brother moving to New Jersey and all, and so the summer of '69 wasn't exactly the best time for our family. Yeah, we've only spoken once since the shootings. He wanted to know if there was a way we could stop Jeff's picture being shown all over the TV.
Yeah, I've seen the picture you mean.
Yeah, the one with that girl screaming over his body. Yeah, seems I can't turn on the television without seeing it. Yeah, I thought it was maybe his girlfriend at first, yeah. He said something about this girl he met that he liked, but, well, you know, boys, he gets embarrassed about that sort of thing. Or he did. He may have worn his hair long, Mr. Kelner, but he was still my boy. A good boy. He called me every week just to tell me how he was doing. Yeah. Then he just transferred to Kent State after the winter break. He said it was nice there. He said he was really going to make a go of things. He said I would be proud of him.
You should be proud of him.
Yeah. Oh, you're the first person to tell me that, Mr. Kelner. Yeah. Yeah, it's the phone calls, you see. I mean, that's why I wanted to meet you. I heard you were a civil lawyer.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Holstein. Phone calls?
Yeah. Well, yeah, just after I saw Jeff's body on the news, I started getting these calls at home, strangers saying, well, Jeff was a no-good, stinking hippie, that he was a communist and that he deserved to be shot, and that I should be grateful, and that I should send the National Guard $1 in the post to pay them back for the bullet they had used on him.
Oh, good God. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's just, well, it's damn un-American is what it is.
Yeah, well, it's not just the calls. There's issues with people at my school, too.
The students?
Not just them, but the teachers, too. I overheard them saying how it was Jeff's own fault that he got shot, and that how I couldn't have done a good job as a mother bringing him up, and that my divorce was to blame for his behavior. Yeah, and the principal, the one who wouldn't lower the flag, he doesn't even want people to know that Jeff was a student there. He thinks it could embarrass the school. Yeah, but I do, Mr. Kelner. I want the whole country to know that my son was a good boy. He wasn't no communist, and he wasn't no dropout either. I want them to know that he was murdered. And I want the people that did this held accountable for their actions.
Mrs. Miller, sorry, Mrs. Holstein.
Elaine.
You're right. I am a civil lawyer. And it seems to me if the National Guard is to be charged with anything, then it should be murder. And that would be in a criminal court, which would be handled by the state of Ohio.
Yeah, but the governor of Ohio was the one who sent the National Guard into the campus in the first place. So you're telling me that state is going to spend its time and money prosecuting its own men? Well, I may only be a high school secretary, Mr. Kelner, but I do know the difference between black and white. And that's why I want to take them into civil court.
Mrs. Holstein, a case like this will be complex, long and costly, and even if it were to be successful, the results in the end may not justify the means.
My son, Jeff, was barely 20 years old. Do you have a son, Mr. Kelner?
Yes, I do. Robert, he's a lawyer at my firm.
And if it was your son lying there in that pool of blood, would you stand idly by and let the whole world tell you he deserved it? Tell you he was worthless? Would you let people do that?
No, I sure the hell wouldn't.
Well, I never understood why we went halfway around the world to liberate a country that doesn't even seem to want us there in the first place. The last war seemed so simple. The Germans and the Japanese were the bad guys, and we were the good guys, and no one questioned that.
War is never simple, Mrs. Holstein. Elaine, even the Russians were our allies once. Look, I'm not saying no. Let me look over the civil statutes that apply here and get back to you. But it could be several years before a case of this type is heard before a judge.
But right now, our children are being judged out there. They are being tried and convicted in the media. We need a voice, Mr. Kelner. They need a voice.
A voice. My mother was right about that. You see, one thing you need to get straight from the very beginning is that not every kid was carrying a Molotov cocktail and a rock to class that day. They were just going to class. Sure, we were anti-war in the sense that we thought that the war was wrong and we weren't too happy about it. Then there were my friends like Tom Grace, Alan Comfora, his sister Chick, and Allison Krauss, who were part of the anti-war movement. They were the kids who organized the rallies and the demonstrations, things like that. But they still weren't part of any radical group like the SDS or the Weathermen who did the bombings that summer. It was all about promoting peace, not starting a war. I guess you could say, like any kid reaching 20, going to protest rallies is like a new hobby for me. But I hadn't broken any laws and I wasn't about to. Okay, I didn't like what was happening in my country. And I guess I looked up a bit to Alan and Allison, and I wanted to know more. But radicalized? I was no radical. I was more interested in talking to girls than anything. We'll talk about that more later. So my mom left Joseph Kelner with a lot on his mind that day in 1970 when he returned to the offices of Kelner and Kelner, the other Kelner being his son, Robert.
If you're going to come straight in, why do you even bother knocking?
It's this bad habit I picked up from my son.
What's up?
You busy?
Just going over the divorce contracts for the O'Connor case. Why?
Well, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the shootings at Kent State University last month.
Well, it made me sure glad I no longer go to college. Why do you ask?
Well, I met one of the victims' mothers today. You know, Elaine Holstein, formerly Elaine Miller, a mother to that kid whose dead picture's been flashing all over the news.
The one with the girl screaming over the body.
The same. She's asked me to represent her in a civil case against the governor and National Guard of Ohio.
Are you going to take the case?
Well, don't you think I should?
I think you'd be going up against a lot more than just the state of Ohio.
What's your basic assessment of what happened that day?
I mean, only what I've seen on the news, read in the papers, magazines.
Well, humor me. Give me your perspective.
Okay, well, it all started with Nixon's announcement about the bombing in Cambodia a few days earlier. And then at Kent State University, which is a blue-collar university if ever I've seen one, a lot of working class kids. There was a series of protest demonstrations against the expansion of the war into Vietnam. Okay, so I believe on the Friday, there was a disturbance in the town of some kind. I don't know, one of the crowds got a little rowdy outside some of the bars. And the mayor asked for the National Guard to be brought in to restore law and order. That was on the Saturday at 5 p.m., I think they said. By the time they got there, the ROTC building is on fire. And so all protest demonstrations on the campus are banned.
Yup, and then?
Then there's a sit-in protest on the Sunday. And then on the Monday, all the kids that were away for the weekend come home and there's another bigger rally. Anyway, the National Guard moves out to disperse them. And, well, it's not clear to me how the shooting started. Someone panics. But anyway, 4 kids are killed. A bunch of the rest are injured. I don't know.
Well, 9 were injured.
Yeah, right, 9. I see the shootings at Jackson State aren't getting quite as much attention.
What do you mean Jackson State? When was that?
Just yesterday. Police shot and killed 2 black kids, wounded 12 others. It's not clear whether anyone's pressing charges yet, but you ask me, no one's taking this one to court. What's your basic assessment of this, Dad?
Well, I think no member of a federal authority has ever been taken to court before, and I think that's about to change.
I have to cancel my date tonight, right?
How pretty is she?
Very. Just pass me the phone.
Boy, that Robert was one committed guy. The decision might have been made by the Kellners to take on the case in December of 1970, but the wheels of the US justice system turned slowly in America. So by the time the case was getting ready to be tried in court, it was 1975. By then, Watergate had taken place. A young film director that most of us had never heard of called Steven Spielberg was getting ready to release a film called Jaws onto an unsuspecting public. In April, the capital, Saigon, was about to fall. And all of us that had been telling everyone for so long the war over there was futile, finally saw its end come to pass. But in April 1975, as he relocated his family into their new Cleveland apartment, Joseph Kelner only had one thing on his mind: our court case.
Dad! You want these?
Put those in the conference room.
Which one is the conference room?
That better not be my bedroom you young men are talking about.
I thought it was our bedroom.
I don't think so. As if you'll be doing any sleeping.
I sleep?
Oh, is that so?
Sure, it usually happens when you're talking to me about something.
Oh, you are terrible, Joseph Kelner. You can have your conferences in that bathroom if you carry on like that.
Yeah, we'll just put them in the lounge by the bay window, all right?
Sure.
Are we expecting visitors?
Knowing Dad, every day from here on out, I expect.
Anyone home? I'm looking for the Gelners from New York.
You found them, sir. Joseph Kelner, this is my wife, Libby, and my son, Robert.
Clyde Geldner at your service, sir, the American Civil Liberties Union. It's good to finally meet y'all.
Bob Kelner.
Let me guess. Like father, like son, right?
Well, he said, Dad, I want to be a lawyer and accountant. And I told him, son, take your pick. Your clients are going to love and hate you in equal measure, whichever one you choose. I guess he went for the lesser of the two evils.
Well, ain't that the truth? How y'all settling in?
Well, we're still moving in, as you can see.
Can I get you an iced tea, Mr. Geltner? It's surprisingly hot today.
You're most kind, man, but no, thank you. So myself and my colleagues, we represent the parents of Sandra Scheuer, one of the poor girls who lost her life that day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were going to come and see you this very afternoon. I understand we have an office not far from here.
That we do. Yeah, I thought I would come over and take you down there, and it's what everyone's calling base camp. It's only a couple of blocks from here.
Okay.
That'll save us on taxi fares.
Yeah, well, we're in your hands, Mr. Geltner. We'll come along now if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's perfect. You can meet some of the team.
Okay.
So who else do we have on board?
Well, you'll be meeting the Gellers, Stephen and Galen. They're the two paralegals working the case. And, well, believe me when I say nobody knows the documentation like these guys.
You know, the Kellers and the Kellners are working on the same case. It's just as well we haven't got the name placards made for our desk, you know? Everyone might get a little confused.
Well, these two might have the same surname, but just so you know, they're not even related.
Well, we're not even there yet, and already I'm confused.
Well, you two best get going then. I'll have dinner ready at 6, and you better not be late, Robert and Joseph Kelner. I will not be serving cold food in this apartment, Ohio or not, so you best be sat down ready at that kitchen table when the food arrives hot, or you will be eating elsewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Your wife likes to run a tight ship, huh?
She does. Trust me, she scares me more than the worst judge I faced in any courtroom.
Whoa, well, don't count your chickens just yet, Mr. Gelner. You haven't faced down a judge in Ohio.
Now, you'll remember at the beginning of our story, you were told that certain characters in this tale are going to be fictional combinations of real people. Well, Clyde Geltner, you just met, being based on one Clyde Ellis and Mike Geltner. He is one of those, and there are plenty more. The legal team on both sides of this case was huge. Every bereaved family had a different lawyer, and so did every wounded kid. All of the defendants had different lawyers too. But in this story, we've trimmed down an army of legal professionals to just a few characters, so you can keep track of who's who. So the Kellners, alongside our Mr. Geltner here, went 2 blocks up the street to base camp. The office for our legal team would see a whole host of characters come through its door in 75. And in a moment, well, you'll have an idea of just how complex and convoluted a journey it was, even for this case to get to court. That's good old American justice for you.
Well, gentlemen, welcome. This is base camp, as we're calling it. Joseph Kelner, meet your paralegals who are working the case.
Stephen Keller.
And Galen Keller.
No relation.
So we heard.
Nice to meet you both. Joseph Kelner, and this is my son, Robert.
Definitely related.
Well, so this is our office. We have a ballroom next door for meetings when we're not in the courthouse.
So my good friend, Mr. Geltner here, tells me that you two know this documentation inside out and back to front.
That's right. Every deposition.
Every witness statement, every file.
Okay, well then, is that right?
Yeah, Joe, I'll bet you a $20 bill. These guys can tell you whatever you need to know.
Okay, well, let's see then. Okay, here we go. So if I was to ask you what did Captain Syrup do on the hill, what would you tell me?
Okay, well, this this has his Ohio Highway Patrol statement, his FBI statement, his
Now,
statement during
what
testimony,
we call a workaholic.
and the deposition that Mr. Geltner here took.
All his wife.
You'll find he told the FBI that he saw no danger on the hill, no reason for the guardsman to shoot. And you'll also see that he fudged this in his depositions.
Okay. Good to have you on board, Miss Keller.
I'm sure glad someone knows their way around this stuff.
Just try not to move anything without checking with me first.
Otherwise, you will upset her system.
Oh, there's a system.
Oh, no. I must have left my wallet at the new place. Bob, be the man. Well, I can see we need to go through everything and summarize where we are.
And we can order some takeout.
Sounds good. Dad, better call Mom.
Yeah, good idea. Can I use your phone, please?
Now, our Joseph Kelner was what you would call a workaholic. So it's just as well he made sure to call his wife to ensure no cold food was left at the table. Because by the time the team came to summarize where they were with the case that night, every ashtray was full. They consumed more coffee beans than Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis. But they were dedicated. And like my mother said, these were the people who were going to give us a voice.
So, 4 dead young American children and 9 others injured.
I hate to say, Joe, but technically they were adults.
Well, at 19, Alison Krauss was still only a teenager, and Jeffrey Miller only turned 20 in March.
Come on, no one is an adult at 20. I sure wasn't. Hell, these were kids. They were still learning and growing. I mean, that's something that every American can relate to, right? At that age, we're still just trying to figure out who we are and what we're going to be.
Well, Alison Krauss, Sandy Scheuer, Jeff Miller, William Schroeder, murdered for nothing more than exercising their democratic right to protest. That is the essence of this case.
Yeah, well, for such a simple case, Joe, the Federal Justice Department's reaction to it couldn't have been more confusing and contradictory. First off, we have President Nixon's reaction. He promises a swift response to the killings and forms the Scranton investigation. To investigate, they conclude that the shooting, Galen knows this.
The shootings were unnecessary, unwarranted, and inexcusable.
Yeah, other departments investigated all come to the same conclusion, and yet still Nixon calls no grand jury.
And although, get this, and although the commission sends more than 100 FBI agents to Kent State, not a single one of the actual National Guardsmen present that day are interviewed by them or anybody else on behalf of the commission.
Why the hell not?
Oh, some bullshit reason. It would have interfered with the ongoing state and federal investigations.
How so?
Basically, under Nixon, the Justice Department had merely cooperated with the Ohio authorities rather than acting on its own. So essentially, they had the idea that the guardsmen were liable to be prosecuted under the Ohio criminal legal system.
But that doesn't happen because Governor Rhodes, the man who called out the Ohio National Guard in the first place, superseded any criminal investigation by appointing a special grand jury to investigate the case.
So this would be the special grand jury that didn't seem very keen to investigate the actual shootings?
That right there pretty much sums it up, Joe. They concentrated all their efforts on what they called the illegal...
the illegal and criminal acts associated with the campus unrest and the events that led to them. So basically, they didn't investigate the shootings at all.
Shit, she's really good.
I did tell you so.
Well, in fact, the only arrests that were made were of some students, and a report was produced that condemned the actions on May 4th of both the students and the university administration.
How convenient for Governor Rhodes.
Very convenient. So by this time, they decided that
there was no reason to believe that the claims of self-defense made by the guardsmen were fabricated.
Oh, and next up we have U.S. Attorney General John Mitchell. He declares several times that his department would act on the case if the state of Ohio did nothing.
And did they?
Nope. Because President Nixon secretly ordered Attorney General not to summon a federal grand jury.
Well, could we get that in court?
Okay, team, hands up. Who wants to subpoena ex-President Tricky Dick?
Okay, whoa. Let's not run before we can walk, huh? So it sounds to me like the actions of one investigation cancel out the other, with the ultimate result that nothing is done. Now, this reminds me of what happened with the Kennedy assassination.
Then, of course, we have the Ohio National Guardsmen themselves. You won't believe this. They took zero internal disciplinary action against any of their men. In fact, quite the opposite. Some of them, they actually promoted. And the officers on the scene that day never really produced any real accounting of the ammunition that was expended or which weapons were issued to whom.
That has to be against standard procedure.
Absolutely, Robert. Absolutely. From day one, standard procedure is you account for all weapons and ammo.
The Guard's chaplain present that day, John Simons, he said that he felt the shootings to be unjustified, and that prompted General Canterbury to say that he had to be shut up right in front of a CBS reporter.
Okay, well then we have to get Canterbury and Simons on the stand.
Yeah, and I'm guessing our General Canterbury was the most senior ranking officer on campus that day.
Well, yes, technically he was in charge, although he claims otherwise, of course. Well, is he going to be our main target?
Well, he'll be in our firing line, but no. Our Red Bullseye is reserved for the fine governor of Ohio, Mr. James Rhodes himself. He called the shots, and he was the one who said he would use all force that was necessary to end the campus disturbances. And we have to show that he violated the Constitution and that he allowed the Guard to abuse their authority as a direct result of his actions.
Okay, well then we have to link the whole chain of command from him down to the man at the front with the rifle and the bayonet, to show that they lost control of their men and de facto violated the civil rights of the students.
Yeah, and we also have to show there was no justifiable reason for firing. I'm certain that will be the crux of the case.
Well, that shouldn't be too hard. Everyone knows they weren't in any real danger.
Yeah, well, don't be so sure. The fact that there have been no attempted prosecutions of the Guard so far is a pretty clear sign of the kind of power we're going up against. I mean, look at the shootings of South Carolina in '68, Chicago, '69, and then Jackson State just 10 days after Ken. 2 kids dead and 14 injured. Not one person punished for any of those incidents. We'll be sending a message to those who enforce the law that they are not beyond prosecution when they break it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, tomorrow we'll pick through our list of witnesses in fine detail.
Okay, so what do we know about the judge?
Judge James Young, not much. Although at the pretrial hearings, he pretty much ruled in our favor every time. Been a judge since '67. Fred Sindel knows his uncle, Senator Stephen Young.
Who's Fred Sindel?
Oh, so Fred Sindel is one of the other legal team. He's looking after one of the other families. He's a brilliant trial lawyer. And Joe, personally, I recommend him as your number 2 counsel. You get to meet him with the plaintiffs and the relatives tomorrow.
Okay. Which ones are we meeting tomorrow?
Oh, all of them.
Oh, no, I can't. I forgot tomorrow's Saturday. Galen, you best remind me what day it is when I come in future.
Sure thing, I can do that.
And Sindel tells me he thinks Young is a pretty impartial and fair judge.
Yeah, well, that's important for us. Federal judges carry a lot of influence with the jury, and something tells me getting an impartial jury in this state, well, it isn't going to be easy.
Yeah, about that, you should read the letter columns in the local papers.
Yeah, look at this. Not exactly an outpouring of grief and sympathy for the victims.
They're saying that Sandra and Allison were covered from head to foot in lice and riddled with syphilis, and that's just to start with.
Yeah, well, this is a war we're going to have to wage on 2 fronts. The more repulsive the image of our 4 dead students becomes, the less weight and significance their deaths will carry. Now, we can't have any of the plaintiffs going on any more marches or rallies when this goes to court. Justified radicals they may have been, but right now, they are victims of a brutal and illegal act. And we need to show the jury and the public that any one of these kids could have been their own child.
Yeah, some of them aren't gonna like that, Joe. I mean, this is a bunch of pretty outspoken young men we're dealing with here.
Yeah, well, right now they're gonna have to act like young little boys, be seen and not heard.
Well, so who gets to tell them that piece of good news? Why is everyone looking at me? Oh, screw all of you.
Oh, you're the right age demographic. They'll all relate to you.
Great.
That first meeting the following day was a full house. Now, you're not going to meet all the players in the story today. There just isn't time. But take it from me, everyone was there. The parents of those killed, the students who were wounded, plus all their parents, lawyers, advisors. And as you can imagine, everyone wanted to meet the lawyer from New York who was going to lead the fight in that courtroom. my two friends, Tom Grace and Alan Comfora, plus the students who were wounded that I never got a chance to know. Joe Lewis Jr., Robbie Stamps, James Russell, and of course, Dean Kaler, who was confined to his wheelchair. John Cleary, Doug Rentmore, and Donald Scott McKenzie were all there too, but you're not going to meet all the players in the story today. There just isn't time. Of the parents of the 4 kids which were killed, Arthur Krause was probably the most ardent campaigner. He was writing letters to senators right through the trial. You'll meet him and his wife Doris later in our story. Martin and Sarah Scheuer, parents of my good friend Sandy, were there along with Bill's folks, Louis and Florence Schroeder. And of course, my mom, Elaine, was there too. You couple that with the legal team, and well, that was one packed out social room in the Kelner building, let me tell you. Oh yeah, and let's not forget Reverend John Adams, because religion just loves a good tragedy, and they didn't get much bigger than the events of May 4th, Kent State University, 1970.
I didn't realize there would be so many people here today.
Dad, good timing. This is Fred Sindel, who Mr. Geltner told you about.
Good to be combining forces with you, Mr. Kelner.
Likewise, call me Joe. Now, I must apologize to everyone because I don't think we bought enough donuts for everyone.
Well, just as well. My wife wants me to try and lose a few pounds. Oh, this is our good friend, Reverend John Adams.
Hello. I hope you don't mind me bringing the word of the good Lord to this fight, Mr. Kelner.
Well, with us taking on the good state of Ohio, Reverend, I will take all the help I can get.
Excellent. And the good Lord never says no to a donut with sprinkles.
I should hope not. I always like to think that my donuts were blessed by the Lord.
Indeed, Mrs. Kelner.
Okay, right. Well, now we have. I'm Joseph Kelner, but you can call me Joe when we're not in court at any rate. This is my son, Robert.
And if you really must, you can call me Bob.
And my wife.
Libby, I can see I'm going to be cooking for an army when our barbecues.
I'm Sarah Shore.
Hey, hi.
Russell.
You want to believe
Forehead.
Thank you, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention? Please, everyone. Thank you. Okay, well, now that we've all been introduced to one another, I'd like to thank you all for placing your trust in me to be your lead counsel in this case. Now, you must forgive me if I don't remember everyone's name straight away, as my team and I are a little awash with facts and figures at present. Now, be it by design or pure chance, a destiny has been placed in our hands, and that destiny is to uphold the vital freedoms of speech and assembly, and all of you here will need to play your part. How you all present yourselves to the jury in that courtroom will be just as important as how I present the evidence.
So your appearance, your demeanor, even the way you wear your hair, it's all gonna come under the most intense kind of scrutiny. Now, once that trial starts, everything you do and everything you say, what you wear and how you look is gonna weigh heavily on every single member of that jury. Now, those of you who have long hair, you're gonna have to get it cut.
Oh, no.
Should we hide who we are?
Surely it's important for us to be able to express ourselves freely. I mean, isn't that what this trial is all about?
Well, exactly. I am not cutting mine. It's that simple.
You don't have a choice, Alan.
I'm with Alan.
Come on.
Guys.
Really?
Stand where you're coming from. I do. But the jury won't. Okay, the defense are going to try and paint you all as an unruly mob that made their clients fear for their lives.
Exactly. We're also going to need you all to attend court as much as possible. The jurors are going to have to sit through some long and difficult days, and you have to show that you're prepared to share that burden right there with them. Otherwise, how can you expect them to sympathize with you?
Yeah, I have to agree. So, gentlemen, that short haircuts, suits, and neckties whenever you're in that courtroom.
Well, fine. I'm buying a wig then. I'm not letting those bastards dictate how I look. Jesus.
How is a wig gonna make your hair shorter?
All right, fine. You know what? I'll put it in a ponytail, hide it under a beret. How about that?
That's ridiculous.
You don't want people to think you're Che Guevara.
Mr. Kelner, I don't want to be the pessimist in the room, but not one person in authority, police, guardsman, or any other branch with men wearing a uniform, to my knowledge, has ever been convicted of an unjustified killing.
Unjustified murder? Sorry, but our Sandra was murdered. There's no two ways about it. And I want the people that shot and killed my daughter, who was doing nothing more than walking to her class, to pay for what they did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's like our bill.
Right, Mrs. Sawyer. So I wondered realistically what you think our chances are, Mr. Kelner, before we all start believing in false hope here.
I can't make any promises.
Being from New York, you really don't know the people around here, Mr. Kelner. They hate us. They wanted us shot. They think we deserved it.
Yeah, just read the local papers, man. When my friend came home from Kent after the shootings, you want to know what her father said when she told him she'd seen one of her friends shot?
What'd he say?
That he wishes they'd shot more of us. You have to understand, Mr. Kelner, the moment we get in that courtroom,
it's going to be all of us against them. It'll be all of us on here who are going to be on trial, not the guardsmen, and they were the ones who shot us.
Oh, this isn't a simple road accident case where someone has been run over by a car.
Okay, I think we're all aware of that.
It's worse than a car. We've been run over by the governor and the whole state of Ohio. And any jury we get is going to see this case as them versus the entire anti-war movement, which they all see as nothing more than a bunch of hippies and communists.
Yeah, well, this was the first time my son Jeff had even been to a rally for anything. Yeah, and even if he was against the war, he had every right to be there.
There's a difference between being anti-war and part of the anti-war movement. You need to get that across to the jury, Mr. Kelner.
And our William was just going to class. He wasn't even part of the demonstration. My son certainly isn't no hippie communist.
Hey, what are you saying, Louis? My Allison was a damn commie?
No, but this is America, not the Soviet Union. And we better remember that when we get in that there courtroom.
Oh, look, we might as well be living in Russia for all the freedom that we have in this country. The rights to freedom.
I honestly don't think being hippie communist is the worst thing.
I'm not going to sit there and defend it.
Everybody, everyone, please!
I have no...
Everybody! This is what the other side is counting on. Divide and conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book.
And the most effective.
Look, we know how difficult this is for all of you, but please
Do you,
understand.
Mr. Kelner? Do you really? Has your daughter been called a whore in a national newspaper? Do you have people calling your house, telling you that your child deserved to die? No, sir. I don't think you have any idea how difficult this is for all of us.
I just ask, how many people here have received phone calls like the one that Mrs. Krause just described? I think if that proves anything, it shows you that we're all in this together.
Okay. Look, I won't pretend I can understand what some of you are going through, but it's vital that we stay united. It's okay for us to disagree in private, but I personally don't care who's a Democrat or Republican in this room. But I do believe in this country's legal system. And last time I looked, it was the same for governors and hippies alike. You're gonna have to let us do our jobs and give the system a chance.
With all due respect, Mr. Kelner, President Nixon got his hand caught in the cookie jar by the system, and he got away with it.
No, he was still forced to resign.
But what? He didn't go to jail.
No, but the Attorney General did. Look, I won plenty of tough cases, and we have solid evidence, and the truth is on our side. And that is one powerful weapon the other side doesn't have.
The people of Ohio don't care about the truth in this case, Mr. Kelner.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid the truth is all you got, son. That and the people in this room are going to fight tooth and nail for it to be heard. And I wouldn't have taken on this case if we didn't believe we could win.
Okay. So, Bob here is going to sit down and listen to everyone's concerns individually, answer any questions you may have. I have to give Mr. Kelner a ride over to the campus.
Wait, you mean you're going to leave me alone with these people?
You'll be fine. Gaynor will help you take notes.
I take excellent notes.
Yes.
That's very comforting. Okay, who's first?
Dean, What do you think of that, Galen?
I think you want to know if she is single.
No. I was just wondering if you thought she was, if she takes good notes.
Why don't you offer to help?
So, what do you think?
What do I think about what?
Well, about that lawyer.
I think he's from New York, and he has a lot to learn about Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, take my car, Joe. It's parked across the street.
Yeah, sounds good. It'd be good to walk the ground and see everything from the perspective of the day in question.
Mr. Kelner. Mr. Kelner. We speak you, please.
This is Lewis and Florence, parents of William Schroeder.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I want you to promise us, Mr. Kelner, that you're not going to let those people call our son a communist. Not in there. And not in that courtroom.
Our William was a fine boy, Mr. Kelner. He never would have threatened anyone, let alone pick up a rock. He was an
outstanding member of his ROTC class, Mr. Kelner. He even thought about going to Vietnam. Well, until he saw what was really going on over there.
And then there was this photo of William and holding his folder.
Yes, taken right before those guardsmen fired those shots. You can see he was just on his way to class. You will tell them what kind of man our boy was, Mr. Kelner. Please. Please promise us that.
I will promise you. I will do whatever I can to get justice for your boy. And we will talk about this further, but for now, I am so sorry, but you'll have to please excuse us, and I have to get to campus before dark.
Emotions were sure running high that day. I was proud of my mom. She was more composed than some of the others, but you have to understand, 5 years is a long time to get angry. They were something of a discombobulated group, you might say. Sandy Schroeder taught me that word. When Sandell and Kellner arrived at the university, they parked right near the spot where I met Sandy 5 years earlier. Sandy was best friend's Val and Confora's sister, Chick, and I liked her as soon as I saw her.
Dad. Yo, Dad. You coming to Alley?
Hey, Chick, how's it going? Yeah, maybe. Is your friend coming too?
Why don't you ask her? Jess, this is Sandy.
Sure. I'm in your art class.
Oh, yeah. I've seen you around. Sorry we haven't had the chance to talk yet.
Oh, no, that's okay. Chick said that you're originally from New York, but that you transferred here a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, from MSU, but I didn't like it there.
Oh. Wait, so how'd you end up at Kent?
Listen, I gotta run. Catch you two later.
Oh, okay. Tell Alan I'll see him at the rally.
See you later, Chick. So, you were against the war then?
Yeah, I guess. When I left MSU, I traveled to Ann Arbor.
Whoa, cool. I hear it's real progressive there. Apparently, they're going to legalize pot.
I don't know about that. I just went to see what was happening while I made up my mind what to do with my life. Three of my friends decided to stay there. I ended up here.
Okay. So how's KSU turning out for you?
Right now, it's looking pretty good, actually. I'm making some friends. Chick and Alan are really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I play the drums. You want to come and check that out sometime?
The drums? I mean, I don't know. That sounds like it'll be kind of loud.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much fun it'll be.
Kind of a stupid idea, I guess.
No, no, I would love to hear you play. Just maybe when you're in like a band or you have a gig or something.
but we could listen to some music together sometime. Do you like the Beatles?
I love the Beatles.
All right, let's do a Sergeant Pepper night. I'll catch you then.
Definitely. You hear lots of different versions of how Sandy and I met, but that was pretty close to it. As you can probably guess, I planned to ask her out. There was something about Sandy, an energy. She was real kind. You'll get to meet her again later in the story. Let's be honest. I think my whole interest in the peace movement was mainly motivated by finding a way to talk to girls. If you've never seen me trying to chat up a girl before, well, that's what it looked like. But everyone loves the Beatles, right? So like I was saying, it was almost 5 years to the day when Mr. Sindel and Mr. Kelner parked right near the spot where me and Sandy met. When you drive from Cleveland to Kent, you'll see the landscape littered with rail yards, storage tanks, and mountains of coal either side of the highway. Then you begin to realize why so many of us wanted to get away from home.
You know, after doing that drive, I can see why getting away to university is so popular around here.
Yeah, it's an escape route from working on the factory line or in the sawmill for most of the kids. But this university was never supposed to get as big as it has. The population of Kent exceeds the number of students only by 10,000 people.
Phew, that's a pot recipe sure to make the pot boil, huh?
Oh, yes, sir. They've had a troubled relationship since the 60s. No doubt the defense is going to use that. I'm certain they'll argue that the trouble on the Friday night at the bars on Water Street led to the unrest on the campus, which caused the burning of the ROTC building on Sunday, ultimately justifying the guards' actions on Monday. I'm sure that'll be the cornerstone of their entire case.
Yeah, well, according to our Constitution, it doesn't matter what the students did or didn't do 2 days before, and it shouldn't matter who burned the ROTC building. It's a cornerstone I intend to demolish. What matters is whether the guardsmen fired with justification on May 4th.
That may be true, but 2/3 of this state voted Governor Rhodes into the chair 3 times. Now that means there's a strong chance that 2/3 of our jury will be deciding the guilt of a man they personally elected to power.
Yeah, well, let's hope he's just made some unpopular policy decisions recently.
Oh, he's popular, all right, especially with the older generation. Are you aware of Ohio statutes on narcotics?
No, please do enlighten me.
2 to 15 years and up to a $10,000 fine for mere possession of marijuana. And 20 to 40 years for selling it.
40 years? Shh. I would hate to see what the statutes are for armed robbery.
One student arrested for jaywalking was given a choice of a haircut or a month in jail. I probably should have mentioned that to Alan Confora when he resisted a visit to the barbers. So, here we are. This is it. I know. Hard to believe, isn't it? That this is the site of a
massacre. So the guardsmen came up over that hill?
Yeah, and then one group came down to the practice field and realized that effectively boxes them in within the fence that runs along the left there, along the tree line, and the gymnasium at the top of the field.
Well, that's kind of a dumb move. I can't see what purpose it really served.
I know, right? So then we have a whole heap of witnesses who saw 10 or 12 of the guardsmen form into a football huddle, like they were planning something. Of course, none of the previous investigations ever asked any of the guard what they were doing or talking about at the time, or why one platoon knelt down and pointed their rifles at the few students that were here in the parking lot.
Well, this maneuver over the hill didn't break up the students. Wasn't there a photograph taken that showed there wasn't any within, say, 200 feet of them?
Yeah, the one taken by Beverly Knowles.
Yeah.
Right. So after this brief standoff, they about face and begin to head out back the way they came and go up to the hill. When they reach the top,
They turn and fire. 67 shots. So this is where the 4 fatalities occurred? Jeff Miller was shot about here?
right here on the edge of the parking lot. Sandy Shore about 50 feet back, with Bill Schroeder just a few feet behind her.
Shoy was behind the VW Beetle, and Alison Krauss was even further back.
Her and her boyfriend, Barry Levine, also sheltered behind the car when the firing started. Miller was pretty exposed standing here.
Okay, well, let's go and look at exactly what the guard could see.
So they stood about here, though Sergeant Marion Pryor stood a few feet in front of the rest.
Pryor was photographed emptying his .45 pistol, wasn't he, as I recall? Now, it's some distance to the parking lot from here. What, about 300 feet?
If I remember rightly, 325 feet. But the right end is closer, where Miller was shot at about 265 feet from here.
So for Sandy, Bill, or Allison, that could be as far as 350, 375.
Could be about that.
That's some distance. They had a moving target for a shot that wasn't aimed.
You would have thought with indiscriminate fire, the people closest to the guard would have been the ones fatally wounded and not the people furthest away.
Yeah.
One full metal jacket was even dug out of the wall at the Foreign Apprentice Hall.
Well, Scott McKenzie was shot near there, and he was 750 feet away.
That's right. You've done your homework, Mr. Kelner.
Yeah, well, at school, I never liked being made to stand in the corridor. Now, if you turned and fired in panic because you thought you were going to be rushed, you'd fire at the largest target closest to you. And that was the largest concentrations of students, who at this stage are to your immediate left and in front of Taylor Hall. But you don't fire at them. Instead, you turn and fire down the hill towards the parking lot. You single out targets for execution.
Jeff Miller wasn't particularly political, but he was photographed at the front of the rally giving the guard the finger several times that day. Someone dropped him deliberately, if you ask me. Many of the witnesses say he was the first to be shot. I think it likely that Sandy Schroyer was singled out too because she was wearing this bright red blouse. What is it they say in the army?
Better dead than red.
Just here would have been where one of our photographers stood. His picture showed the guard moving forward.
Well, we'll need all the photographers to take the stand.
Yeah, most of them were students, so that won't be a problem. Right. Down there is where they started out, with a skirmish line across the commons, in front of where the ROTC building used to stand, about 800 feet from here.
You order your men to disperse the crowd by the bell down there. Then you march up this hill, and the crowd free in front of you, spreading out along Taylor Hall, and a handful are running down into the parking lot, where you also have people just going to class. So now you're up here. You then order your men to sweep down the hill towards the practice field, where there's a minimum number of students. Why?
Charlie Company took the left flank and came around the left side of Taylor Hall, towards a parking lot, but they stopped short of entering it.
So you're gonna sweep the practice field and the parking lot areas of students. Why not you Charlie Company and then link up in force up on the hill?
You're assuming they had a plan?
It's what we call an oh shit plan. There was no strategy here. The one thing I am sure of, though, is those kids didn't need to die.
I have to admit, cocky and young as I was, I did give the guard the finger that day. I mean, soldiers firing weapons at American students on campus wasn't exactly a common event. So how was I to know any different? But old hatreds ran deep, and it wouldn't be long before the Kellners began to receive the sharp end of the Cleveland hospitality.
How did it go today?
Oh, I was fine. They were a good bunch of people.
How do you think they took to you?
It's hard to say. I let Robert field most of the questions today.
Why? What were you doing?
Well, I had to go and take a look at the campus myself. It's hard to believe that anyone would be stupid enough to fire an M1 Garand rifle on a campus like that full of students.
Maybe someone panicked, I guess.
Or they were ordered to, or both.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just been a really long day.
My mom always said, never marry a man who brings work home with him.
Yeah, well, I have some good news for you there. The ACLU has rented another apartment to act as an office and meeting place for us.
Well, that is good news, because the super said that he didn't want all the families coming together in that social room again.
Really? Why not?
Well, he said some of the neighbors had complained, and he said he was afraid of getting death threats. This case, Joe, should I be worried? I mean, you know how crazy people get over this whole Vietnam thing.
Do I look worried?
I'll reserve judgment on that. Are you ready for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's only the jury selection for the trial. It won't start for real until next week.
Well, knowing you, this is the earliest that I'm going to get to see you until this damn trial is over. So you had better get your ass in that bedroom after dinner if you know what's good for you, mister.
Oh, you know me. I do love a voice of authority.
I bet he does. So finally, a day in court had arrived. As Joe and his team met on the steps of the courthouse that morning, they caught the first glimpse of the man who ordered the National Guard into KSU, our good governor, James Rhodes.
Governor!
Governor, please. Thank you. Governor, nice to see you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Governor, how do you think the trial will impact on your election chances?
Oh, it don't worry me not at all. I know the fine people of Ohio know the vote for Jim Rhodes will mean safety and security for the people of this fine state, just as it did for Kent State.
And what do you expect the outcome of the trial will be?
Expect to be acquitted of all charges. Now, if you excuse me, I do need to get to court. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Kelner, are you confident that you can win this case for your clients?
I have every faith in the American justice system. Now, if you please excuse me.
God, I can't believe it.
What?
That I voted for that man.
Well, nor can I. But we don't have to vote for him again, do we? Come on, let's get inside.
Mr. Krauss, you recently spoke at a peace rally where you said that you couldn't understand why your daughter was shot. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't understand how we come to such a state in this country that a young girl can be shot because she disagrees with the actions of her government. That's not a country I want to live in, and I'm a Republican.
Come on, Arthur, don't upset yourself now. Let's get inside.
At last, we had our day in court, but no one had figured yet that the court itself was to become our greatest enemy.
Hear ye, hear ye. This court is now in session. Judge Don James Young presiding.
Be seated, please. Now, before I begin the process of jury selection, I have a small point to make to the plaintiffs in this case. I would like to remind you all that you should not discuss the case with the press or make any public speeches while the trial is ongoing. At a recent so-called memorial rally, one such speech was made, and I hope it will be the last one I hear of during the course of this trial.
Like a little bias to open the case with, huh?
Now, the counsel is ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the defense has certain motions to make at this time. We request that Your Honor dismiss all charges against our clients.
That motion has been presented before, Mr. Fulton. It was denied on that occasion, and I'm denying it again today.
That's more like it.
Now, I'd like to thank all our potential jurors for being here today. From the 70 of you, 12 will be chosen to sit on this case, and we will choose a further 4 alternatives who will have to attend the court every day should any of the jury be ill or have to leave due to personal problems. Then the alternatives will take their place. Present here also are the parties for the plaintiffs and those for the defense. I will now introduce you to the defendants. But before I do, potential jury members, if it turns out that you have any personal affiliation with anyone present, you must tell us immediately Now, farewell then. The first person on your list you will see is Governor James A. Rhodes. Your Excellency, would you please stand for the jurors?
Your Excellency, what is that about, Dad?
This is gonna be worse than I thought.
Let me tell you, that jury selection was painful, and finding people who didn't know someone who knew someone that was involved in this case wasn't easy. You might as well be trying to pick that shit out of the pepper to find a man or a woman who hadn't read every story the press had printed on Kent State, bias or otherwise, as you shall see.
Would the next juror, Miss Sheridan, please stand?
Nice hair.
Thanks. Nice suit.
Hi, thank you for noticing. Miss Sheridan, where do you reside?
I live at 202 Farmtown, Pike Road.
Why, that's the address of something we would refer to as a commune, is it not?
Well, if you call 8 people living together a commune, then yeah, I guess you could call it that.
We will use a peremptory to dismiss this witness, Your Honor.
The next potential juror is Mr. Wiles.
Mr. Wiles, you're a telephone company repairman, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you see anyone in the courtroom today that you know in connection to either party?
Well, I see Guardsman Russell Rep sitting over there. I have done some repairs in his home a few months back.
Mr. Wiles, is your relationship with Mr. Rep such that it would cause you any difficulty of your judgment of the jury if it went against Guardsman Rep?
It would probably create a little problem, but I would have to use my own conscience.
Joe, I saw that man nodding to some of the guard when he arrived at the court this morning.
Your Honor, I respectfully request that this man be removed from the jury selection for cause. He knows his defendant's family and he's been to their home. His possible bias is self-evident.
Well, I don't know how they do it back east, Mr. Kelner, but down here, just because one is a repairman and goes into someone's home doesn't mean he knows them.
I don't think this court is so naive. A man knowing the family will surely have a...
I was brought up to practice law in a very small town, and it was not unusual for the jurors to be acquainted with the parties brought to before them from time to time. We didn't give it a second thought.
Yeah, well, I'll save the court any more time, Your Honor, by using a peremptory to dismiss this individual.
Very well. Mr. Wiles, you may step down, and thank you for attending today.
And may I also point out, Your Honor, that none of the potential jurors are black, a fact that's not only been highlighted here, but in the local press. And it does seem rather unrepresentative of the population.
I would take the weekend recess of the court to address that issue, Mr. Kelner. Now, with the next potential juror, please step forward.
I'm sure some of you out there might have recently heard of the trial of the Chicago 7, something that happened 6 years before this case and 1 year before the shootings at Kent State. Let me tell you, the judge in that case was a scoutmaster compared to our good Judge Young. During the bias rulings in that jury selection, hell, even a blind man could have seen which way the wind was blowing that first week. Our team regrouped back at the base camp office in Cleveland to assess how things had gone with the jury selection.
Okay, so we got our jury. Question is, can we get our verdict?
I still think we have some pretty undesirable choices. Mrs. Daughter, for starters, she's a farmer's wife, so probably don't care for big city folk too much.
That prick Brown couldn't wait to point you out as the outsider in the courtroom, could he?
Yeah, well, I might as well get used to it. I'm sure it won't be the last time.
I told you they would never let us win this thing. Look at the way Judge Young let that guy Fulton talk to you.
The judge is supposed to be the most impartial person in that court, yet he treated Governor Rhodes like some kind of royalty.
Yeah, I have to admit that when he addressed him as Your Excellency, I thought he was going to step down and put a goddamn crown on his head or something.
Yeah, well, putting the governor on a pedestal could work against the defense.
But not if the jurors are the ones who put him there.
Can't you see it? They're just waiting for their chance to get us in there, Mr. Kelner.
Yeah, and this case will give them that.
Yeah, well, Robbie, give me a chance and I'll prove you wrong.
I hope you will, Mr. Kelner. I'll catch you all later. I need to get away for a bit.
See you, Robbie.
Well, look, at least he gave you your 2 black jurors, Mr. Kellner.
Yeah, Albert Hunt and Bobby Joe Collins, both in their 40s, hardworking men.
I mean, they both looked like decent, honest men to me.
We haven't just loaded our jury with 2 Uncle Toms.
No, we don't. But the defense has no way of knowing that either.
Assuming the defense plays by the rules.
Yeah, well, we have to put our faith in the jury.
Well, I wouldn't put it past this defense to slip a brown envelope to a juror or 2 either.
What about the other women on the jury?
There is Roberta Heckman, married, early 40s, and a service inspector. Edith Jacadis, also married, in her 50s. She works for the White Motor Corporation.
Oh, I'm guessing neither are exactly advocates of women's lib.
Well, then we have Ellen Gaskeller, our one and only juror in her 20s, the age group we were hoping for.
She was the tall blonde one?
Yeah, she was wearing a short coat.
Oh, yeah. Nice legs.
Yeah, well, it's good to know you were all paying so much attention. Then we also have a Mrs. Patricia Myers, a savings bank teller, 33, from Palma Heights.
Yeah, I liked her. She wore her hair long below her shoulders, in the style of a student. I think she'll be sympathetic to us.
Maybe we should have had a hairstylist help us with jury selection, huh?
Well, as for the other men, we have a banker, a machinist, an assistant engineer. The 4 alternates include Richard E. Hunt, an FAA controller who did a tour of duty in Vietnam.
Okay, office workers, bankers, machinists, clerks, and tellers. This is a blue-collar jury if ever there was one. No one with a university education, only 1 person in our plaintiff's age range, no one from a Jewish background, and no black females. You know, it's not exactly a stark cross-section of the community.
I agree, Joe, but I don't see what else we can do about it.
Well, we'll hit them with so much hard evidence it's impossible for them to vote any other way than in our favor.
Well, I don't think you need to worry about Mrs. Dodderer. I checked with some of the folk in her clergy, and they tell me that she's a smart lady and that she's likely to judge on the evidence and not be swayed by others on the jury.
Okay.
God works in mysterious ways, Reverend.
Consider it divine intervention.
Yeah, well, we've gotten up to something of an auspicious start, so I'll take it, Reverend. Thank you.
Mr. Kellner, you make sure you remind them that our children are dead children. Could have been the child of any one of those men and women sitting on that jury.
Yeah, my Jeff, he even asked me for permission to go to the rally that day. I mean, do you know how many times I wish I'd said no? He was such a good boy.
My mom, she wasn't lying about that. We both remember that phone call like it was yesterday. Hey, Mom.
Oh, Jeff. Oh, how lovely to hear from you. Oh, I heard on the radio there's been some trouble at your school, though.
University, Mom, not school.
You know what I mean. Look, your Nana's, she's upset about it all. She worries about you is all.
I've transferred all the way to a university in Ohio, and still Grandma is checking up on me.
Yeah, well, she just worries about you. Yeah, and so do I, to be honest. God, there's been such a lot of demonstrations since the president's speech.
Well, yeah, I think people took offense at him calling us a bunch of long-haired bums, when we're just saying it's not okay for our country to kill kids in Southeast Asia. That war is not doing anyone any good, Mom.
Oh, I know. Oh, odd. Who'd have guessed you get so political on me?
Look, Mom, there's going to be a rally on Monday at noon. I was thinking I'll go over there, show my support. Is that okay with you?
Just be careful, Jeff. Okay? Please be careful.
Of course I will. Hey, listen, Mom, I've got to go, but listen. I've met this girl. A girl I really like.
Oh, Jeff, that's wonderful news.
Well, not yet, Edmund. I don't know if she feels the same way about me yet, but I was thinking maybe I could invite her to come up over the summer. We could show her New York. Go to that Italian place you like.
Oh, I love that. Oh, what's her name?
Okay, Mom. I've got to go. Love you.
Love you too. Bye, Jeff.
Bye, Mom. That was the last time we ever spoke. I wonder what else we would have said to each other had we had known those were to be the last words between a mother and her son. When she called back and asked to speak to me, I wasn't there. This is the end of the first part of our story, and the journey is just beginning. I'll let my friend Allison pick up the story from here, because it isn't just my story. It's hers, it's Sandy's, and Bill's, and the 9 others who were wounded, some of whom were friends of mine, and some of whom I never even met. My name is Jeffrey Glenn Miller. I was a student at Kent State University, and I was shot and killed by a bullet from an N1 rifle, which went through my mouth. I was protesting at the presence at the National Guard on my campus on May 4th, 1970. I was 20 years old. Do you remember what you were like when you were 20? I hope so. I ask you to remember me as the person I was, not as the body in the photograph that you never knew. You might feel like you're free in 2021. But take it from me. Don't ever take your democratic rights for granted.
That concludes the first part of 13 Seconds in Kent State. Please tune in at the same time next week. Sunday. Out.